Don't go to your business to fulfill your needs for variety and adventure, but with talk about the game is that if you start to see business and life as a game, it allows you to kind of disassociate from a lot of the emotions that are there. People put their life savings and their life's work into their business. Shouldn't we find a way to enjoy it? So like a good board game, enjoying the process, regardless of whether you win or lose at the end, you've enjoyed the journey. And I think that if we can start to learn to enjoy a lot more what we do, we actually allow ourselves to become a lot more successful than if we're just trying to get to a certain destination.
So you're a smart business committed to innovation, to service and to modern marketing. And you're asking, what's next? Wondering how you can become even more innovative. My name is Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and this is the InnovaBuzz podcast, where we share all kinds of tips, advice and interview guests on all things innovation and leadership in modern marketing. Hi there, Innovator. It's great to be back with another episode. Yes, it's that time of week again. I hope you've had an awesome week so far. I trust you enjoyed our most recent conversations too with Dr. Annette Coy and Cameron Fee of the Cortex Group and with Brian Dixon, the author of Start With Your People. I'm really excited to have on the InnovaBuzz podcast as my guest today, Barry Magliarditi, founder and CEO of The Game Changers. Barry helps entrepreneurs and business owners grow from 6 to 7 figures onto 7 and 8 figures. And using his proven business frameworks, he teaches you about the interplay of the inner game, which is all about your mindset, and the outer game, which is all about your business. And more importantly, how you master both of those, particularly your inner game. Today's episode is brought to you by the Transformational Marketing Hub, where you'll find a host of free and exceptionally useful information to help you transform your marketing. You can access the Transformational Marketing Hub by visiting innovabiz.co/VIP. Go check it out. You know the deal now. It's free to join, and if you're a member already, just log in to get your resources. In our discussion today, Barry talked to me about being super clear about your goals and how that plays into your inner game. We talked about building systems and processes as a key part of freeing up your time from the day-to-day running of the business. And we talked about the importance of surrounding yourself with a high-performing team and a high-performing tribe. Without further ado then, let's fly into the hive and get the buzz from Barry Magliarditi. Hi, I'm your host Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast today, all the way from Perth in Western Australia, the other end of the continent from me, Barry Magliarditi, the founder of Game Changers and also the host of the Comeback Game podcast. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Barry. It's a great privilege to have you as my guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, the Game Changers, you work to educate business owners and entrepreneurs to play what you call the inner game of success, and you do that with proven approaches that scales their business revenues and profits. And at the same time, and this is important, I think, is reducing the time they actually spend in the business. So I'm really excited to dig deeper into that. We did have Michael E. Gerber on the podcast some time ago, and he's all about working on the business, not in the business, and basically making yourself redundant in your own business. So I'm really looking forward to exploring how you tackle those things today. But before we talk all about business growth and systems and maximizing profit, give us a bit of a high-level snapshot of your background. How did you get to where you are today, and what were some of the pivotal moments in that journey?
Yeah, thanks very much. And once again, very grateful to be on the show today. I guess for me, growing up, I always felt that I was a little bit different to everybody else. It was almost like an itch that I couldn't scratch. And that eventually got me in a position where I left high school and went straight into an apprenticeship because I believed that I wanted to become like a cabinet maker. I always had this desire and this drive to build things and work with my hands. And that leaving grade 10 straight into employment was challenging because a lot of my friends were transitioning to university and college and so forth, and still continuing the party. Whereas for me, life got very serious. But I was also committed to go out there and start to earn my way in life, I guess, and an income and kind of find that need of independence. And something that I remember very clearly is through school, which was very challenging for me, is my mother kept saying to me, look, for you, Barry, like you just need to get through school. I know that life will take off for you once you get through school. And she was correct in many ways. I guess that looking back now, I was probably always a bit of an entrepreneur at heart, always a little bit of a disruptor and maybe even a rule breaker. And so I left and started my apprenticeship, finished that, typical apprenticeship in that field is 4 years. I finished it in just under 18 months and then went on to work at a few other different places and industries, getting skill sets across from furniture making to furniture polishing to making kitchens and bathrooms and staircases and alike. And then one day I got abused by my boss at the time, and I remember distinctly feeling that my life was worth a bit more than the way I was being treated. And at that point in time, it caused me to reflect back on my upbringing, realizing that there was this common theme that had happened where I'd always felt that I was being mistreated. And I resigned at that point in time and no plan, no idea what I was going to do, left the workforce, and 3 weeks later I had a conversation with my mother where I shared that I was kind of worried that I wasn't worried because I'd left this job. I had a home loan, no money in the bank, and no idea what I was going to do next. And that was essentially that key moment where I went into starting my own business. I put an ad in the local paper saying, no job too big or small, and started to fit out my shed at home with the tools and equipment that I needed to start to fulfill like local handyman and cabinet making jobs. And that now was around maybe I was probably 13, 14 years ago now. I went into my own business. To kind of give you a brief snapshot of there to now, I went into that business. We grew very, very quickly to a multi-million dollar turnover. And then things equally went down the drain very quickly as well, where I got to a position that I realized I had a multi-million dollar job. I had a partner, I had 2 kids at that stage. And, I went into business to create a different life for myself where I was having this money, this financial freedom that everyone spoke about. And back then I wanted to make $1 million and also had time to do what I wanted to do. Yet I just built myself a multi-million dollar job. I didn't have the cash or the income that I thought that I should have for the amount of time I was putting in, nor did I even have any time off, like weekends or after work. I was always consumed within the business. And that was, I guess, what really started the journey of where I'm at now with the Game Changers and what we help our clients is going through, at that time, what was a very painful experience, an experience that 98% of business owners are in, where they have this job. They have a business that relies on them to show up and to do certain aspects. Many times they're often paid the same or less than what they would for working for someone else. And yet the funny thing is most people go into business to create a different life for themselves than what they've actually got right now.
That's right, yeah. And their boss is probably even more disrespectful than the one you walked away from.
Yeah.
Because it's themselves, right?
That's right.
You, as your own boss, you tend to be very demanding.
Yeah, correct. Often expecting way more of yourself than anyone ever else could expect from you too.
Yeah. All right. So, and I guess that one of the things was that you were working insane hours and the business basically couldn't run without you.
Yeah, correct. So I was working but back then, I was working probably more than 80 hours a week. I would often not get home till after dinner. Then I'd still be doing work at home, catching up. I would be working weekends. Like I didn't have a social life outside the business. I didn't have any thoughts outside of the business. And that was eventually what caused my partner at the time, mother of my kids, to leave, because she said, look, I don't doubt that you love me, but the way that you're showing up right now doesn't show that. Like you're always working, and when you're not working, you're at home, you're not present, you're not here, you're in another world, you're always stressed out. Like this is just not how I thought I'd be spending my life.
So how did you begin to turn it around?
The interesting thing is that I think in many ways the universe prompts us and squeezes us when we're a little bit too off course. And for me, back at that point in time, that defining moment was when she left and said, "Look, I'm leaving you." We're in Tasmania at the time, and she said, "I'm moving back to WA to be with my family where I can get some support for the kids. You do what you want to do," kind of thing. And so she left, and I realized at that point in time that although I had this desire and dream to create this business and this life that supported me and my family, I'd done the complete opposite of that. I'd created something that demanded my every attention, that couldn't operate without me, because I'd built myself into a job. I'd trained my team to rely on to me to answer the questions and make the decisions. I didn't train them or enable them to be leaders in their own right. And I trained my clients to deal directly with me, like some of the larger clients. I had a sales team, but I still had many clients that knew to work with me directly. I trained my clients, I trained my staff that I was available after hours, and essentially, created, as I said before, very much a prisoner. It was that point where she left that I really had to take a good hard look at myself and the situation that I created for me, and realize that it was very much off course of what I wanted to create 4 or 5 years earlier when I started the business.
All right. So I guess I'm just guessing that you're probably, one of your drivers today is to help people who are in business avoid going through those painful situations and sort of getting them on the right path before they make a lot of those mistakes.
Yeah. And I guess the unfortunate thing, we've been lucky enough now that we've worked with hundreds of clients around the world and helped hundreds of clients become free within their business. And unfortunately, the common thing we see is that, as I said before, 98% of people that we work with are in a very similar situation. They've either got a business that's grown and continues to grow very, very strong without really doing too much. And you'd be surprised the amount of people I speak to. They're like, "Look, I've got no idea about business." They're running a $5, $6, $7 million company, and they're like, "I've got no idea what I'm doing. I've got no idea how I've got here." But the business is out of control, and I need to kind of rein it back in, and it's demanding everything of me to keep it going. And then there's the opposite end of the scale where, people are in business and they're just so stuck and so burdened with what they're doing. They may be really, really smart people, but they may have known what they need to do, but they're just not quite sure how to go about doing it. And it's got to a position where I guess the business owns them. And it is a bit sad, because I don't think anyone goes into business to create what most people create. There's all these dreams of what it's like to work for yourself. But unfortunately, not many people get there on their own.
And of course, I haven't seen any ads like this for a little while, but there used to be this thing where you'd see some suave-looking guy or girl with a several $100,000 sports car leaning on the bonnet, and and with the yacht in the background and the mansion up on the hill, saying, just sign up for this kind of business system or whatever it is, and you too will become this business owner with this lifestyle. And kind of that there was this image or this aura around that all you had to do was go out on business on your own, and that was your destiny. Whereas that's far from the truth.
Yeah, all the people that are sitting at the beach with their laptop, drinking a cocktail, saying, "Hey, this is my office for the day." I don't know about you, but if I'm on the beach, I don't want to have my laptop with me. Number one, the sand's very annoying, the keyboard, and number two, if I'm at the beach, I'm there to enjoy, not to work.
Yeah. Although I have to confess that 3 weeks ago, we weren't on the beach, but we were on the deck above the beach with the laptops on the tables. But that was actually a business retreat. So, officially we were there to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now you talk about the inner game and the outer game when you talk about the game of business, and I like the idea of it's a game, because I imagine that there's a whole lot of metaphors within that, like games have rules and there's a particular way that you play within the rules. And if you don't follow the rules and the strategy of the game, then you probably won't be successful. So talk to us a little bit about that, and also, what's the inner game and the outer game?
Yeah, great question. You're very much right with the metaphors. I think first and foremost, people take business way too serious, and it's that approach of taking it so serious that actually has them resenting their business, not enjoying it, and making a lot of poor decisions as well. Which is quite normal, though. Like we weren't taught how to build businesses, and even if you go through Stanford University or something like that, the way that they teach you to kind of grow a business and the real world of growing a business are often very different. Every industry's got different requirements to be successful. But you look at the game, it's like, I remember Robert Kiyosaki saying many years ago, he said, you got to learn the rules to know how to break them. Like, you need to learn the basics of building a business first before you start to become too innovative. And, something my partner keeps saying to me, and we say to our clients often, is that business should be boring. And what I mean by that is that if business is constantly, excitement because there's always these fires to put out, it means that there is some lacking of fundamental processes or systems or structure in your business. Like, you want to have a boring business so that you can have the excitement outside of life. Like, don't go to your business to fulfill your needs for variety and adventure. But with talk about the game, is that if you start to see business and life as a game, it allows you to kind of disassociate from a lot of the emotions that are there. People put their life savings and their life's work into their business. Shouldn't we find a way to enjoy it? So like a good board game, enjoying the process, regardless of whether you win or lose at the end, you've enjoyed the journey. And I think that if we can start to learn to enjoy a lot more what we do, we actually allow ourselves to become a lot more successful than if we're just trying to get to a certain destination. The rules thing, yes, there's compliance, there's obligations, tax obligations and things, but equally too, once you learn the fundamentals of business, you can start to understand how you can style flex them and move them around as well. But one thing that we talk about a lot is around this inner and outer game. And it's really something we noticed many years ago in the gap in the marketplace. Is a lot of people are positioning themselves as business coaches. Now, most of these people, they've either only ever had a business themselves, and that they believe that that's provide them enough education to now be a business coach, or B, they haven't even got any success behind them. They've just know how to run some Facebook ads, and they call themselves a business coach because they think it's a good niche to get into and can make them a lot of money. Either way, they're kind of playing with people's lives. And we see that business does come down to two things, the inner game and the outer game. The inner game being you as a business owner, the way that you're wired, so your beliefs, your values, the way that you go about making decisions, the connection between head being your intellect and your heart being your intuition. They say that 80% of successful leaders make decisions first based on intuition and instinct, and then back them up logically. Yet it's a lot of things we see in people that aren't too successful in businesses. They've gone against their intuition. They start getting too stuck in logic. And when we start playing around with logic, a lot of the time we're making decisions based on the past. And one thing that you'd know is if you're in business, a lot of the time decisions you're making aren't based on the past. They're things that you haven't necessarily done before or tried before. And this is where, basing them on past information gets challenging. But that inner game is really around you as a business owner. And we work on the notion that the business will never outgrow the founder. And so what we mean is that in order for your business to keep growing, you as a business owner needs to keep growing and needs to keep evolving, because the way that you are operating a startup or a business doing $100,000 a year, and your beliefs and the decisions that you make, the way you go about doing things, are very different to who you need to be at $500,000 or $1 million or $10 million. And if you're not growing faster than your business, you will become the bottleneck for your business. And so 80% of what we do at the Game Changers is working with our clients around helping them master their inner game and to be consciously growing faster as a person, as a business owner, as a leader than their business, which then allows you to work on the outer game, which is typically what most people teach and what you can find on YouTube, which is around strategies, tactics,
Yeah, that's right.
techniques that are required, putting in systems and processes, having a plan, having a good recruitment process, having a good client fulfillment process, marketing, sales, all those other things that you need, but they're honestly useless unless you as a business owner is working on yourself first.
Yeah, I love that. It's a kind of a holistic approach. And like you say, you can get all these processes off the internet. Google's wonderful. You can learn a lot of things from Google. But I guess what strikes me sometimes, I see some things that I see a lot of things that I think, yeah, I can adapt that and use that, and that'll save me a lot of time developing something from scratch. But at the same time, I also see things that I say that's not congruent with my own values and belief system and the culture in my
Correct.
business. So, which comes back to really knowing kind of who you are as a person and what culture you're trying to construct inside your business, which, is the inner game you talked about. So
Yeah.
I'm interested, how do you tackle that with people then? How do you kind of address that in a coaching sense?
Yeah. It's challenging to explain in a very short period of time, because one thing that we find is every business owner is very, very different. And often it's spending the time with them to first understand where they want to go. And what I've just mentioned is where they want to go. A lot of people, without knowing it, their goals are not their own goals. Their goals are based on society's goals, or based on our need to belong or fit in with the current state of environment, our friends, our family, who's around us. And so we want to first make sure that we get super clear on what are their actual goals. And a lot of people always say, oh yeah, but these are my goals. And when we go through a series of questions that we have, they start to understand, and we start to understand, that their goals often are not actually their own goals. So that's the first thing. Second thing is to understand where they're starting from. And where they're starting from, we want to start to question and look into their beliefs and their assumptions. What most people don't ever stop to question is our views on life. If we've grown up in a certain environment from a young age, often the way that we see life, we never question it, because it's just the way that we see life. And it's not until we start questioning it that we start to realize things are different. I'll give you an example of that. We had a client the other day who came on board with us. 30 days in, they're like, oh, I'm not fully sure where things are at. My business is going well. I think I'm okay. I'll do it on my own. And we went through a certain process with him. And what he started to realize is that there were so many things in his business that he didn't even question whether or not he should be the one doing them. He was just doing them. And it was only a couple of weeks later, he was sitting in his lounge of an evening doing something. He had the realization. He's like, wow, I would usually be doing this, saying to myself internally, well, this is just what it takes to be a business owner. Not even question that thought. And it was only after we had this session with him and went through this process, he caught himself saying that in the back of his mind and going, hang on, I don't have to be doing this right now. Somebody else on my team could be doing this for me. And there's this belief a lot of people get stuck into, that they need to be the one that wears 10 hats in their business, or that does all these different things that, anytime you hear yourself saying, oh, I can't hire someone to do this as good as me, or anytime that we say we can't something, that's a limiting belief right there. Right?
Yeah, it is. And it's probably, I think that's one of the biggest ones in any business, particularly when people first start up, their first business. And I know I'm guilty of that myself. When I first started up, I was doing everything, and I looked at stuff and I thought, I don't know how to do that, but I can learn how to do that. So I kind of researched how to do it and learned how to do it. And of course, spent a lot of time learning how to do something that I wasn't necessarily good at, or didn't necessarily have the skills, and probably, wasn't going to be prepared to invest the time to develop the skills to the level that it really needed to be done inside the business. And at the same time, I was not spending time on things that I was good at and that were going to generate revenue for me. So it was kind of opportunity cost on the other hand as well.
Yeah.
And then, yes, often I would say, well, that's not, I can't give that to somebody else because they won't do it as well as I can. Now, luckily, I'm a process geek, so I was always in my corporate career writing processes for things, and I very quickly realized, hang on, all I need to do is write out a process, and I need to write it in a way that, inspires people to actually do it the way I show them to do it. So it's not just you have to do it this way. It's not because it's a rule. I have to inspire them why it's important to do it that way. And when I had that realization, then all of a sudden it lifted a burden off me, because I started bringing people on board that were really great people, and I was able to inspire them to do things in the way that I wanted them done, and ongoing training and so on, and develop them as we moved forward as well. And then, I had stages where I could just take 6 and 8 weeks off and the business just kept going without me, which is, a fabulous place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think coming back to your question too, you're like, how does that work? And I guess the way that works is that we we know what's possible, and we work with enough clients, and we spend enough time in this space that we can see when a client has a particular way of doing things that is not the most effective or that's limiting. One of the hardest challenges we have bringing clients on board, or one of the biggest objections that we get, is often the plan we set out to create with them of where we're going to help them get in the first 12 months to 3 years. There's often this belief that comes up that it won't happen, that we can't get them there, and that for that reason we must be illegitimate in our approach. Now, this is coming off the back of working with people that have spent 6 years, 10 years getting their business to $500,000 a year. And then we come in and say, well, hey, in 12 months, we can help you double that and get you out of the business, get you off the tools. Now, to them that have spent 6 or 7 years getting it to $500,000, they can't see how possibly in 1 year we can not only get them double that revenue or profitability, but also get them out of the business, because they're coming to that conversation from their past experience. They're coming from that conversation based on what they know. But so are we. We're coming to that conversation.
Yeah. But there's a limiting belief in that, isn't there? And I've seen that so often in many things. So basically, if I'm to go from $500,000 to 1 million in 12 months, that's got to be hard. So the it's got to be hard is the limiting belief. And then if you come along and say, well, based on my experience and everything that I know and all the resources that I have available to me, I can help you do that. It doesn't have to be hard. So then, challenging that belief is where you've got to get to, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's got to be hard, but equally too, it's not possible for me. And we're coming to that conversation going, well, hang on, we've worked with so many clients that we know that there's even more than that that's possible. And we have the strategy to do it. Like, I'm not going to tell you how to build a house or how to plumb someone's sink or how to run a dance class. That's your area of expertise, but we are going to show you how to build a highly profitable business that works without you. Like, that's what we do. A lot of people believe that as their business grows, they need to make less money and work more hours, right? Because now they've got a bigger business, and it's not the case. Like, if you build a business properly, you should be able to build it in such a way that as it grows more, you get more time back. If you're setting up the right structure with your team and systems and processes, as you just mentioned before, around your background too. But it's those limiting beliefs that actually significantly impact the actions that we take and the habits that we have in our business, and create the current state of reality that most people are living in.
So what's a typical process you'd take someone through to, let's say, that example of somebody's got an established business, it's reasonably successful, it's running at, say, $500,000 turnover, and they've spent 6 to 8 years getting to that point, but they're kind of plateauing right now, and they have this belief that, we've got to break through this plateau, but it's going to be a hard grind.
Yeah.
So what's a kind of a process you go through to get them through that plateau without making it a really hard grind?
Yeah. We would first move them into, so we have new clients that come on board. We take them to a section called Launchpad, and it's a series of 7 videos that we put together super short with worksheets. And it's basically our diagnostic. It helps us and at the same time them, as they go through that process, to understand what the real problems are, because there is a difference between symptoms and problems. And a lot of people are reacting on the symptoms in their business because they've never spent long enough actually asking the right questions to get clear on what the actual problem is. And I can't remember who said it, but they said a problem that's well defined is a problem that's already solved. And so during that Launchpad section, we help them to actually understand where the core problems are in their business. And then we meet with them to spend 90 minutes going and putting together a game plan. So that game plan is really addressing what are the 3 priorities over this next quarter that we need to work on that's going to make the biggest impact in your business. And each client's a bit different. Some want time, some want more money, some want better cash flow, some want to bring on team members, some want to fall in love with their business again. It's different for everyone. But after that session, they've got specific clarity on A, what the actual problem is, B, where they're starting from, C, where they want to go, and D, the steps they need to take to get there. And then it's a matter of us working with them consistently to then overcome whatever comes up for them in working towards that outcome. Because the moment that you have your sights set on where you're going and you know where you're starting from, it's very clear, or it's very obvious, the things that are stopping you from getting there and the things that are coming up. And that's what we help to kind of resolve as our clients move forwards. And we see time and time again that not only do they achieve the results, but they become a different person in the process, because they start to see life from an angle or a viewpoint that they've never been challenged to see it from before.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty comprehensive process. And I love that you start with the analysis, because it's always, I mean, there's two things about that I really like, and it's got to figure out what the outcome is and get really clear about the end that you're going for at that 90-day period, and then looking at where you are right now, identifying the gaps, and then building the plan from there.
Yeah.
Now, you also talk in some of the information I've seen about building a game-changing tribe. So what's that about?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked that question, because I feel that one of the keys to our success and to success in general is the people that you surround yourself with. And what tends to happen in human nature is that we feel safe and we feel like we belong when we're around like kind. And it's an instinctual driver from a part of the brain, the cranial neurology, that lets us kind of know that if we're around like kind, we're safe, we belong. You look at everything that happens around tall poppy syndrome in Australia. You talk about social pressure, peer pressure. It all is surrounded around that part of the brain. One thing that we do very, very well is that we facilitate people in a community. So as well as the stuff that happens one-on-one, a lot of the work actually happens with the conversations between members in that community. So if you're getting someone that's entering an environment, like you've got an environment of 50, 70, 100 business owners, right, that are all achieving goals, that are all breaking through these barriers, and are all reaching new heights of business and life they've never met before. And you get someone that enters that pool or that tribe that has these limiting beliefs, they don't tend to last too long, because their energetic field, their state of being has to change, because their droplet into that bigger pool is very different. Does that make sense? I don't know the best explaining this, but if you've got a group of people that all believe one thing, and one person rocks into that with the notion of, hey, I want to believe that, I want to move there, that's very infectious. They start to shift very quickly. Otherwise, on the odd occasion, they fall back out because it just doesn't resonate. And so building a game changer tribe is, sorry?
Yeah, no, sorry. I was just going to say that having that sort of community is very powerful. I've been I am in several communities like that. And yeah, it's kind of everybody holds everybody else accountable. It's a safe place to float wild ideas or give feedback to others in a way that, perhaps you wouldn't do one-on-one because you don't know the person that well. And also, as you say, if there's somebody there that isn't on the same wavelength and isn't contributing, then they are called out very quickly.
Yeah.
And once you get that tribe kind of built and the core built, they're also very protective of it. So you, as the person who started it up, probably doesn't need to be as active, at least in terms of the discipline or making sure that the culture's right once it's established, because people kind of maintain that culture by themselves.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I guess how you get to that point is to have a very clear vision, a mission, and a set of values. And the values that we have for the community, the same values we have as our business. And I guess, for lack of a better word, we help indoctrinate our clients into those values, into those core values. And we don't typically take on board clients that don't believe what we believe anyway. But as you said, my role to play in that is very little now that we have our clients that are all in that space of inspiration, in that space of wanting to change the game, that if there's an issue in the community sorts that issue out. The tribe sorts it out on their own, because they're all aligned to where we're at and where we're going. And, it's the most beautiful thing to see when a member has a problem or has a challenge. And some of our members have had huge challenges, that the members are the first ones to actually respond and jump in to help out, the first ones to lend a hand, often before my team even jumps in, because everyone's on the same journey. Everyone wants everyone to succeed. And it's very hard for you to be in an environment like that and not succeed. It's very hard for you to hide in an environment like that, because, as you mentioned before, like the other members tend to call you out. The other members, or not call you out, call you forwards into a greater way of being.
The other thing I find about that is, when I participate in those and somebody asks a question or explains a challenge that they're having, and if I respond to that and say, well, based on my experience, here's what I do. So often people will ask a question, here's my situation. I'm kind of torn between X and Y, and I don't know what to do. What would you suggest? And so, often I read those things and I'll come up with some, if that were me, what would I do? And I'll in what's the right word? In articulating that as a response, I actually learn as much as the other person might learn from what I've given him, particularly if, suddenly I see, hang on, this is not unlike a situation that I'm dealing with right now. And why am I giving somebody else this advice, but I'm not taking that advice myself? So, often you find yourself in that kind of situation. And I think that's hugely valuable to, be in those communities and being a contributor like that.
I think who was it that said that if you get taught something, if you listen to something, you retain 10% of the information. If you listen to it and write it down, you retain 40%. If you listen to it, write it down, and teach it, you retain like 85% of the information. When you've then shared it, when you've then taught it to others.
Yeah, I've had several guests say, if you want to learn something, then go out and teach it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you also, another thing that was in your list of interview questions was how to be inspired and unstoppable. And I think, we've dealt with a lot of that there, but are there any other thoughts around that question?
Yeah. I think one thing that's really important is that, if people are signed up to build a business, to take on board that entrepreneur life, they need to realize that it's not often the way it's been sold, which is this overnight success. Like, if you want to build a business, if you want to build a business that supports your lifestyle, you've got to be prepared to put the work in. And I'm not saying or promoting working 80 hours a week. I'm not at all. But I am promoting that they need to have realistic expectations. Like, you can build a wildly successful business only working 30 or 40 hours a week. Now, it might take you a few years, but if you're willing to and wanting to, you need to be okay to put the work in, and need to be okay to have realistic expectations. And I think that's where often people fall down, is that they overestimate what they can do in a short period of time and underestimate what they can do in a long period of time. And so I think that, building a business, they need to have determination. They need to spend time in reflection of their goals, in reflection of their progress and where they're at. And, not just start something and head down, bum up for 10 years to then come up for air and realize you're not where you want to be. Like, you need to build in a lot of the experiences you want to have in life as you go. Tim Ferriss talks about rather than having a retirement at the end of your life, having lots of mini retirements. And I think that one big thing that certainly led to the success of ours, and what I see that I did very wrong in the early days, is that now I create the life from the moment I started this business that I wanted to have for myself. I didn't wait 5 years or 10 years till I got to a certain point to start having that life. I created it from the beginning. So I started with the end in mind. So I think that it needs discipline, it needs determination. You need to be realistic. And I think one of the most important things is, like, surround yourself with coaches or mentors or other people that lift you up, other people that have been there, done that, or can help you get there faster. Because there's kind of two types of business owners that I see. There's smart ones and the stupid ones. And the smart ones are willing to spend money to save time, and the stupid ones are willing to spend time to save money. And time is one of those things that we can't buy back.
Yep. There's definitely a whole lot of golden truth in that. Of course, that's not to say, put yourself in debt to save yourself a lot of time, but there are times when people will skimp and save and spend a couple of hours doing something that might have cost them $50, and yet in that couple of hours they might have been able to earn $1,000 by adding value to their business, or adding value to a client.
Yeah, 100%. Just, I guess, like, there's this attitude, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. There's this attitude that entrepreneurs have, or business owners have, especially in the early stages, which is very much that Lone Ranger. Is that determination and that drive that moves people into business in the first place. They don't necessarily move into business for collaboration to start with, most people anyway. But it's that same attitude that also can cost people growth when they're not willing to ask for help or not willing to share vulnerably where they're at and allow other people to step in. And so there's this bit of a fine line where we need to have that determination, that drive, yet we also need to share with people where we're at, listen to people, not necessarily take on board their advice, but listen to their perspective to get a different lens, consider it, not just listen to it to say no, listen to it, consider it, and then make the decision that feels right to you to move forwards. And I know for myself in the very early days, I was very arrogant and very egotistical and thought that I knew best. And now very much I listen to others, don't always take their advice on, but I do pay the time to ask people things. And if there's someone that's got the success or got the result that I want, I tend to take it on board because you don't know what you don't know.
That's right. Yeah, so identifying a good model is always something that's worthwhile. And as you say, asking for help is really good. I mean, I'm guilty of still not doing that. I certainly in the very early days of my business, I was at the same place where you mentioned. I wanted to do it all myself. Part of that was a challenge. Challenge to myself. I can do this.
Yeah.
But that's about ego, isn't it? As you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now, one of the other things
I was just going to say, and it's okay to want to do things yourself, but if doing things for yourself is not enjoyable and you're realizing that you're not getting the results that you want, it's probably time that you'd be okay to ask somebody else for some help. If you're doing things on your own and you're getting success or getting the results, sure, keep doing that.
Yeah, when you think about moving yourself out of the business, though, and this is where it gets tough when your core expertise in the business and something that you're absolutely passionate about and you absolutely love doing, but you want to grow a business that runs without you, well, then you need to even let go of that at some point. You need to put other people in a position where they can do that as well as you can, and so you can step away. And I think that's where it becomes a challenge, is getting to the point of getting rid of the things that we don't like doing is probably a reasonably easy step for most business owners to get to, but then starting to hand off things that they really enjoy doing is a tough one.
Yeah.
Now, another thing I know you talk quite a bit about is failure and how you look at failure, and I guess that's part of the inner game. And you speak about creating fulfillment and creating an environment that's free of failure.
Yeah.
Not sure how you can be free of failure, but I tend to look at failure in a different light than the word itself might be typically taken to mean. So what's your approach to that?
Well, things are either a success or they're learning, and I remember a mentor said to me many, many years ago, he said, if you want to succeed twice as fast, you need to be willing to fail twice as fast. And I guess that when I look at my relationship with failure over the past few years, the biggest thing that shifted is that I take myself lightly now compared to back then. Like failure to me back then was such a big dent to the ego. Compared to now, it's more so looked at to go, okay, cool, how else could I do it? How else could I do things differently to get a different result right now? So it's more of a feedback, an indicator that something's not quite right. Not that, I'm not good enough or I didn't make it right or any of this other sort of nonsense that I used to give myself years ago. And so things naturally, like, unless you're living a very shallow, non-eventful life, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail, you're going to mess things up, you're going to upset people. That's part of life. But I guess it's for me, it's who you become in that process and how you're willing to stand in the dignity of that, learn from it, and then reapply those learnings into making a more intelligent decision to move forwards with.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And I heard it similarly that you either win or you learn. So and I think using that approach and ego is there again, isn't it? Ego gets in the way too many times.
Yeah, so true.
I can't remember what it was. I think, I'm just trying to think because I was having a conversation with somebody the other day in some context, but I can't remember what context it was. And I said, we leave our ego at the door here, outside the door. Yeah. All right. Well, this is fascinating. I could go on for ages with you on all these topics, but I'm aware of the time. So I think it's a good point to move on to the buzz, which is our innovation round. And it's designed to help our audience, who are primarily innovators and leaders in their field, with some tips from your experience. So I've got 5 questions, and hopefully you'll give us some really insightful answers that'll inspire people to go and do something awesome today.
Yeah, cool. Let's do it.
What's the number one thing you think anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Take time out of their business to just be and think, preferably nature. There's just something about when I'm on holiday, when I'm in nature, when I'm on the beach, when I'm away from my phone and my computer, my laptop, that new ideas come through. So I definitely think taking time to think and to be on your own and to be outside of the normal environment.
That's great advice, and it's interesting because I came off a podcast conversation this morning, and the guest gave me a very similar answer. So that's always a good one. And I love to get out and into the countryside, into the mountains, and walk in the Aussie bush. And I always have great ideas when I do that, or when I'm on my bike.
Yeah.
All right. What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
Travel. I think travel. Get curious into others. So finding others who are in different industries and asking them questions. I find that the more curious I am with other people that don't necessarily have a direct link to what we do, the more I'm able to take on board their ideas and innovate them into a way that works for us. And we see that a lot in our community is people in 2 different industries talk to each other about a challenge, and what they learn out of it, they can adopt and innovate that in a different way into their business. So just getting around other people and getting curious.
Yeah, that's great advice as well. And I think my guest this morning said very similar things again. I don't know, you guys have been comparing notes maybe. Okay, well, what's one of the resources a favourite resource that you use most often?
Favorite resource that I use most often. We have a process called the task audit, and it was the one tool that got me to be operationally free from my business and our clients, and the one tool that I still relate back to. And it's basically a very, very basic tool that has you list all the things that you do, how often you do them, how long it takes, and then helps you to categorize whether you need to delegate it to someone in your organization, outsource it to someone out of your organization, continue doing it because it's actually something you enjoy doing and it's getting you closer to where you want to go, or stop doing it because there's just no use behind what it's doing. It just allows you to kind of, I suppose, disassociate from the day-to-day and from the whirlwind, and then make educated decisions on where you should be spending your time.
Yeah, I love that. That's similar to, I think there's I'm not sure what it's called, but I know it is a 4D approach to getting on top of your emails. It's one of these inbox zero processes, but it basically says, if it's a short thing, you do it. If it's important but can be done later, you delay it. So you schedule time to work on it, and then delegate and identify those that you can ignore altogether, and you delete those.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a similar process.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you did mention a little bit about keeping clients on track, but what do you think is the best way to keep a client on track?
Keep stretching them. A lot of our clients, when they come in, we help them to set big goals. And if you're not there helping them set the next goal when they get close to achieving it, you find that they just kind of plateau a little bit or stagnate. And so it's important to constantly keep that, I guess, carrot out far enough ahead that keeps them growing and keeps them reaching, because naturally as human beings, we're either growing or we're dying, we're ripe and rotting, or we're green and growing. So I think there's that part. I think that regular reviews and checks to their goals and alignment of those goals and where they're at, because situations change, lifestyles change, people have kids, and it completely changes their perspective of their life and their business and where they're going. So I think that regular checkpoints along the way and making sure that there's an alignment to their goals and their goals are always out in front of them is a good way to keep them on track.
Great. That's good advice. And finally, what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Number one thing, I think there's a couple of things. Listen to the market. So don't just put out a product or service that you believe you want to. That's the way we start. But then really listen to the market and the needs of the market. That's how you're going to find those differentiators. Go through, Michael Porter has got a thing called, I think it's the 5 forces. And it's how you kind of develop these differentiators and they work into your strategy, your key point of difference. And if you look at any of the great companies or companies that have done really well, Bunnings is a perfect example in Australia. They've got this secret sauce which prevents other people entering the marketplace and overcoming them. So Michael Porter's got a lot of stuff around that, but I think the core thing that for us I've noticed is listening to your clients and noticing when your clients are maybe demanding something of you you're not providing. That could be the greatest innovation your company ever has.
Yeah, it seems like common sense, but common sense isn't all that common these days.
No, it tends not to be.
Listen to the market. Yeah, find out what the needs are there that you can fulfill. All right. Well, thanks, Barry. This has been really great. Now, where can people find out more about you and even get in touch and say thank you?
Yeah, look, the best place is probably just the website. So thegamechangers.com.au is a place to be. You can either download one of our resources, do a free training, or even book a time to speak to one of the team. Equally too, you can find me on all the social channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Barry Magliarditi, Magliarditi, and equally too, our Game Changers page on Facebook as well.
All right. We'll post links to all of those on the show notes associated with the episode so people can just click through. So what will be your number one piece of advice you'd give to any business owner that wants to be a leader in their field and wants to kind of get to the point of growing their business, but without taking up more of their time, in fact, with maybe even having more free time for themselves?
Don't give up. Be clear on what you want and why you want it, and pursue it. And every step that you take is a step closer to getting what you want.
All right. Well, there you have it. Barry's advice. Okay. Now, finally, who would you like me to interview on a future InnovaBuzz podcast and why?
Good question. Who would I like to interview? Oh, God, there's so many great people out there, isn't there? I don't know. Zig Ziglar would be an awesome one. Zig Ziglar. Michael Gerber's fantastic. God, there's so many great people. Like Oprah Winfrey's another one. Like, I know she does a TV thing, but I think having her on an interview, asking her some different questions would be very beneficial as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know Michael, but I don't know. Can you introduce me to Zig and Oprah?
Possibly. Who knows? We live in a world where it's 1 degree of separation. That's
right, yeah. And I was speaking to someone this morning who has this neat tool of building sort of a human connection chain is how I describe it. And, so you put the person like Oprah Winfrey at one end and put me at the other end. And then, so I don't know Oprah Winfrey, but who knows Oprah Winfrey? And you can figure out, there's a bunch of people that are probably in the public domain that who know Oprah. And then do I know any of them? No. Well, what about those people? Do I know anybody there? And then at some point there'll be a connection, and then I just have to start building those relationships.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time and sharing your time and insights with us today on the InnovaBuzz podcast. I really enjoyed this and got a lot of information from how you approach things and learned a lot around the inner and outer game of business. I wish you all the best for the future, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully your viewers got some value out of today's conversation.
I hope you enjoyed that insightful and engaging conversation with Barry and took something away from what he shared. Barry's messages about how important your own mindset as a business owner is, along with building systems and processes in the business and surrounding yourself with a high-performing team, all really resonated with me. They're really powerful messages, so take them on board. Now, I'd really love to know what you took away from my conversation with Barry. leave a comment below the blog post, which can be found at innovabiz.co/Barry Magliarditi. That is BarryMagliarditi. All lowercase, all one word, innovabiz.co/Barry Magliarditi. You'll also find contact information for getting in touch with Barry there, as well as links to the Game Changer website, to his social media profiles, and to his podcast, and also the other resources we spoke about in the conversation. Remember to visit innovabiz.co/VIP to access the Transformational Marketing Hub and all its free and exceptionally useful information to help you transform your marketing. Also, check out our Tales of Marketing Transformation show at talesofmarketingtransformation.com, where each episode does provide one valuable message to guide you on your journey of marketing transformation. And, of course, tune in again next week, where we've got more fantastic guests lined up, including Andrew Michael, host of Churn FM, and Emanuela Grace of Find Your Voice. Stay connected. Subscribe to the InnovaBuzz podcast so you'll make sure you'll never miss another episode. Head on over to innovabiz.co/subscribe. We'd also love you to leave us a review, because what you think matters to us. Take some of the ideas you've heard today and apply them in your business. Any thoughts, ideas, suggestions or questions, then share them in the comments below the blog post. And remember, if you want to get better marketing results than you ever have, join our fantastic Facebook community at the Tales of Marketing Transformation Facebook group. All you have to do is go to innovabiz.co/TMA. It's free to join. I hope to see you there soon. Until next time, I'm Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBiz. Remember to be awesome and keep innovating.